Great to see you all. Most of you know Will Carpenter, Professor Will Carpenter, so he needs very little introduction around.
Thanks for coming.
He blesses people all the time with his genuineness and excellence. But I do have a few things to introduce him. Before we get started, I wanted to put in a reminder that the senior show is coming up this coming Friday at the Central Mall downtown. Yes, to go to that. Really exciting. And it's so amazing. It's such an honor to have Will Carpenter and his work here tonight. We have him here all the time, but to have this much of his work in one place is really, really a gift. He worked with Joe Sheasley and Jeff Thompson at Wheaton College in undergrad. After that, moved to Ecuador and worked there for a while before starting his MFA at the University of Miami, working under Walter Darby Banner, who you may have heard of. He's won Best of Show, Jurors Award, and Jurors Selection in shows all over the country, from the Cujo Salon, Clark Gallery, the Indiana Wesleyan Painters Association, the Allegheny Arts Council in Maryland, Flow Art Space in Minnesota, Burden Hand Gallery in Washington, D.C., University of Miami. I keep going. There's a long list. Mount Memorial Art Gallery at Grace College, and Ganton Art Gallery at Spring Arbor University in Michigan. And now we have this new body of work here. Will has worked amazing, I think, over his sabbatical, and just brings this presentness to his work, so the way that he deals with material and the way that he deals with people. So we're really blessed to have him. So
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm deeply blessed by your presence, so thank you. I want to start out with prayer, and I want to thank a number of people who contributed to this night, because I know that you look at the paintings and go, oh, Prof. Carpenter made that, but there are a lot of other people that helped me make these. So I'll pray and we'll start. God, I pray that all the glory and honor tonight will be yours, and that if there's any way that we can know you better tonight, that will happen. And I pray that you will soften our hearts, open our eyes, fill us with your Spirit. God, we need you. Our world needs you. We pray for you to work miraculously here and around us. Love you, God. Amen. So, the picture up here, that was from Prof. Nelson. Oh my goodness, he came to my studio and he was somewhat dealing with his health things, and he's still got all these amazing photographs. So a few of them are, you'll see tonight, if it's a photograph up there and it looks like a good one, he made it. If it looks like a bad one, I made it. And but there's an intermixing of both. I probably won't remember every time to say that Prof. Nelson made them, but here's one he took in my palette. And I want to be able to show you some good pictures of my studio. So some of the other people who have helped out were Grace Herndon, made a book out there. I'm going to forget to say a whole bunch of things tonight, and trying to condense a sabbatical semester down into a little talk that I want to make not too long, so that all of you don't get dreary and sleepy or hungry or something like that. Might be tough. So some of the things that I wanted to say are in that booklet, and Grace did an amazing job. Maddie Fox worked out a whole bunch of other things, designing posters and publicity things like that. Thanks to Maddie. And Mateo Allen helped out with a whole bunch of things like pushing pins into walls and things like that. We got sore thumbs, I think. And 1,500 students made drawings for this show, whether they wanted to or not. It was part of their classwork, so they kind of had to. And Hannah Guerin helped out by scanning things for me. I'm probably forgetting many other people. My family, not least my wife, were people who really supported me during this. Kids would play alongside me and spin in the chairs while I would paint, and my wife would allow me to go off to the studio and paint instead of doing things like sometimes changing diapers or other things. I try to help out with those, but for the most part, just incredible support, and I couldn't say enough about that. So I also want to thank the Iowa Division of Art+Design. And they allowed me to leave for a semester, which was an incredible gift, and I cherished this from the very moment I heard that I got it, to say that I know that there are not many times when someone can just go off and do something like paint, and to have anyone believe in you that much is a huge responsibility, and I didn't want to waste that, and so a lot of what you see poured into those paintings is the energy that was displaced by for me by the art division, taking classes and other responsibilities. And I wrote down some of these names here. I think I hit them all, most of them. And then Henrik. Oh my goodness, this guy doesn't stop working, and he's so kind. And I made the mistake of calling him way too late last night, and then. And he was just going, oh no, that's totally fine. I'm going, did I wake you up? And, so anyway, just effervescence of joy and energy, and we love having Prof. Soderstrom around. And so one other thing, Prof. Rodebush made this jug for me. I get my water bottle at home, I use that, and I love drinking out of it. It's enjoyable entirely. The first thing I did on my sabbatical is something that I wanted to do for years. My church goes down to Mexico every beginning of January, and so I wanted to go down there as well. And because I was able to take sabbatical in the spring semester, I was able to go to Mexico. So here I am with some of the people from my church and some people from Mexico, and made some really good friends there. I got to use my Spanish that I learned back in college and in high school, and when I was in Miami, just kind of got to brush up on all that stuff. And when I left there with a very special gift that embedded itself in my face. It was a black eye. I was playing, don't do this, I was playing ultimate frisbee at night. And like a 300-pound guy stepped in front of me when I was running this way, and it was not his fault. I should have been looking where I was going, but I was trying to knock down the frisbee from a girl who was trying to catch it anyway. And so we collided head to head, and I thought I'd broken the entire left side of my face. Right, left, whatever side it is. Anyway, but my pastor still says that he thinks my face sags on that side, so I think he's right. So I survived. I didn't lose any teeth even, although, and I didn't even get a concussion, but it was the hardest hit I've ever had in my life when I played football and got knocked down many times, but that was awful. But this is what I went down to Mexico for, was partly to work for a church down there, and they wanted me to paint a mural, so I'll turn off another light so you can see this a little bit better. There's a classroom here, and it's a kid's classroom. It's a Sunday school classroom, and it's boring. So I wanted to bring some of what I saw in Mexico, that kind of like lively color and joyous, funky shape arrangements. I mean, this is a guy cutting the hair off of someone at a barber shop, and it's like the logo of a Major League Baseball or something like that, and the colors and the arrangement. I loved it, and I said, oh man, I want to bring that kind of thing into the classroom, that kind of color, that kind of funky line and stuff like that. So I had about one day to design this. I walked around the streets of Mexico later realizing maybe that wasn't a great idea in terms of safety, but I don't know, God protect me from dogs and other things like that. So we painted the room, and I had a lot of help from other people in my church. Missy Ray, well, I don't know if she's here, but that's not Pastor Brad. And anyway, she helped me paint it, and several other people in the church. I would draw a line and say, okay, everything below this line is going to be this color. And they'd go and paint it. And I'd say, draw another line. Okay, everything below this line is going to be this color. And then I'd tag things with Post-it notes or tape and go, paint these this color. And I had a blue person in. And it was just kind of this really fun time working with people and getting to know them. And the theme of this art show is through in, throughout. And if that title makes any sense to you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But to me, it has to do with getting to know, and that was kind of a great start there, because I got to know the people in my church a lot better, just spending hours and hours together in the classroom painting it. We got to the end of this, and we had, I think, a half a day left or something, and the pastor of the church down there, or one of the deans of this, anyway, so he said, oh, we have this other classroom we'd like for you to paint it too, and I went, I don't think that's possible, and like he's going, we really want you to paint it. So really quickly, I kind of ran through and it was like, took 2 hours or something like that, and we're going, woo, like just painting things, and it's all upside down, I don't know if you can tell, but the first one, the idea behind this was that I wanted people who were learning in the classroom to remember the things that they learned in the classroom when they went back out into their world around them. So that's why I painted things from the world around them in the classroom. These are just like, I saw a cactus that looked something like that, and windows and doors, and some guy carrying a box or something, a wheelbarrow and things like that. And then this one was a young kid's classroom, and I wanted them to get that idea that the whole Christian worldview is just upside down from everything else. So I wanted everything in the classroom to seem upside down. Maybe this is mean and torture, I don't know. But that's what was happening there. The helicopter upside down, but really basic shapes and playful stuff. So big brushes and kind of ran through that. So that was a joy. We went 24 hours down there on a bus, 24 hours back, and those were wonderful times. So when I came back, my big task was to renovate this building, turn it into an art studio. I had been working on it for a couple years, but part of the sabbatical proposal was just that the school would allow me to focus efforts on this, that I could finish up this building, putting windows in it, re-siding it, doing all these things. I'll show you pictures of it later on, depending on how much time we have. But that was where I was going to focus initially. What I was escaping was this kind of thing. Basically, you guys know students drew all these drawings out here, 1,500 of them. And so I like to think like this is what they think of me. But it's a project that I make them do. The project is this, that I want them to understand the tie between an image and the thing that it represents. Very often in our lives, we like to segment our lives and go, I do this, but it has nothing to do with me, or I encounter this thing, but it doesn't affect me. And I think that those things that we don't think affect us a lot more than we think that they do. So I let them draw on my face, just asking them to have this. Is there any kind of inkling or any kind of tie left where you understand that when you're messing with a picture of me, you're kind of messing with me? So that's what we're doing in those drawings. But this is what I left. And for me, I am very invested in teaching. It's part of how I understand myself to exist. And to leave that was just a complete shift of understanding. To be able to back up from teaching allowed me to, I think, become a better painter, more conscious of things that I would understand that I teach back when I would come back to teaching. So anyway, the works of art that I made after or during the sabbatical, in sum, are the things that you saw already out in the gallery. And I'll go through these, but this is kind of a table of contents or something for where we're gonna go in the talk. I'm talking kind of rapidly because I don't want to waste your time, but I don't want to talk so fast that you can't track with me. One of the things I learned the most about during my sabbatical was the idea of pace and the importance of going slow. And it was kind of this intentional, okay, I'm leaving the rush of IWU, which happens in a rush because we have these condensed semesters and we want everyone to learn as much as possible while they're here. But I really believe that better learning happens in a pace that is slower, without excess, without distractions. We have one of our kids who's not here has a hearing loss, and her name's Callie, anyway. She has not a speech therapist, it's a learning to listen, auditory verbal therapist. At one time we called her learning to listen therapist. We'll go with that. All right, anyway. So what she told us was that when she's working with our daughter Callie, and she's trying to teach her to listen and to pay attention to things like how she can speak and things like that, it's bad to have too much excess in the room. We can't have all this clutter. We can't have toys everywhere. Otherwise, she'll get distracted. And I think that one of the things that I was able to do better in sabbatical and bring some of that back with me to when I started teaching was this idea of eliminating excess. So here's a picture of my kids. They're all down in the front row here, but this was the messiest picture I could find of our living room. It gets terribly messy sometimes, but so imagine these Duplos kind of scattered everywhere. We just don't take out the camera when the room's a mess. So probably my wife's happy with that. She wouldn't want anyone to see the mess. But sometimes the room does get really messy, and there are distractions and things like that. And this less busy, less of a mess, slower pace is I think what the learning to listen therapist, auditory, whatever therapist says. I think that she's onto something there. And a couple of the things that I've been involved with recently, thanks to my friend Steve Stassen back over there, he gave me some starter for bread, for sourdough bread. And if you've never used sourdough bread starter, and you think bread just tastes like the bread that you buy in the store in a package like Pillsbury, whatever, that doesn't taste very good. It's kind of bland. And what you have to do is try like sourdough bread with starter. And thanks to my friend Steve, I've been cooking this bread, and I found out that letting bread rise for a day, like 24 hours, makes a much more flavorful bread. And other slow things that are better would include things like going the speed limit, right? Like not going too fast, like that could be bad. I have to tell you this really quick story that I'm sorry for color theory class, I think I already told you this in my painting class. But I got to class one day, 20 minutes before class started, and I went, great, I got everything together, and I could just sit down and think how this class period's gonna go, which doesn't always happen because I drop my kids off at school, come to class, and this is just a couple weeks ago. And I put everything down, I said I can rest and I can think here, and I realized that my computer wasn't with me. And I went, oh my goodness, it takes like, at best, 10 minutes from the bypass to get home and back, home, and then 10 minutes to come back if you don't hit any traffic. But I was in Center Hall, so this wasn't gonna work. So I wrote a note on the board going, I'm gonna be a little bit late to class, don't leave everybody. So I drove back to home, going the speed limit. By the grace of God, I have a cruise control on my car, and I said, okay, I would love to get home faster, but I'm not. I'm just gonna go the speed limit. I went home, got my laptop, I said, hi Jackie, gotta go, bye, and ran off, and then jumped back in the car. I was not going the speed limit between the car home and back to the car, but I got back in the car and I went the speed limit all the way back, so I was like running when I was in the house, that's what that meant. So I get in the car, and I go all the way back 35 when it's 35, 40 when it's 40, and I'm going, God, this is your time. This is your time. You can slow it down if you want or something like that. I'm a firm believer in that time is not really consistent and God can do whatever he wants with it. But so I get to class and everybody's still there. I'm a little bit late. It was all fine. We had class and it went fine in my opinion at least. And then that Friday, I was at Kendall Elementary and my friend Rob Bogart, he was like dropping his kids off, and I was dropping my kids off, and we went out to the parking lot, and he said, hey, I saw you the other day driving down the bypass, and then a few minutes later you came driving back down the bypass the other way. I went, oh, is that Wednesday? And he goes, yeah, I think that was Wednesday. And I go, oh, you wouldn't believe it, I was like the biggest rush ever. He goes, you wouldn't believe it, I was sitting with my friend Joe, might be a real name, might not be, and he was a cop. Oh! And they were sitting at Moe's together. And Joe was scanning people as they go down the bypass, going like, how fast are people going? So they're sitting there together talking because they're friends. And he goes, oh, here comes my friend Will in his truck. Tell me how fast he's going. and Joe goes, like this is Rob telling me the story. Joe goes, oh my goodness. He's going 35. No one ever goes 35 down the bypass. He's seen people go 60 down the bypass, but not 35. So, just like, to the glory of God, oh my goodness, going slow can sometimes be better, right? And so you would have thought, like, well, getting back to class would have been better, but sure enough, going slow is better. had the honor of being able to read a number of books by audiobook while I painted. I was able to read every book by Wendell Berry that was fictional. His Port Williams series. Have any of you read Wendell Berry at all? Yeah, okay, so maybe you have an idea as what I'm talking about. He gets you to understand the value of slowness and pace in terms of understanding a place. In his stories, he talks about what happened in the world when we went from plowing a field to driving a tractor over it. The kind of loss of things like the sounds of birds, the kinds of loss of things like understanding the undulation of the landscape and what's good for it. And because I was able to slow down during my sabbatical, I was able to understand some things that can only be spoken in slow ways. So that's just another thing where I want to say thank you so much, IWU administrators and art division, for letting me slow down and understand these things that can only come to you in slow ways. I can't tell you what they were, because you just have to sit down and let that pace speak to you. I want to read to you a quote from Ken Myers. He's a Christian, he's on the radio, and he has on talk shows and stuff like that sometimes, but very thoughtful guy. Mars Hill Audio, I think is one of the groups that he's with. He used to be on NPR, stuff like that. So he said this, he said, knowledge is deeply tied to personal lived reality. Knowledge is deeply tied to personal lived reality. Participation brings us closer to this true state of things. And so with Wendell Berry, participation in the land will help bring you closer to the true nature of that land. It helps you understand what the land needs. It helps you understand what your crops need or what the birds need or things like this. And in my own life, one of the ways that God slowed me down at one point was with my daughter. So she once, you don't mind me telling everyone this, Gracie, but I tell them every now and then anyway. I'm just happy to hear. She once had warts on her feet. And so that was kind of oh man, this is going to be really annoying. And it's sad to say, my honest assessment of how well I knew my daughter before she got warts on her feet was not good enough. And when I say that, I'm saying it as graciously as possible on my end. It was not good enough at all. And because she had warts on her feet, I had to hold her foot for 10 minutes every night with the little wart cream on it, letting it dry so that it wouldn't rub off in the sheets if I just put her right to bed. Because what I'd want to do is go, put her to bed, I've got work to do. And I'd put her to bed and move on. And praise God he gave her warts on her feet because it taught me to slow down enough to get to know my daughter. And so 10 minutes every night, with some exceptions, but for the most part, 10 minutes every night, I'll spend time just talking with her. I learned to do that 10 minutes because I needed those 10 minutes for the wart cream to dry, but now I understand that I can know my daughter so much better, and my relationship with her just while her warts were healing was so improved that I said, I'm not letting go of this 10 minutes a night. Like, what a beautiful investment. And so I'm going to read to you this Ken Myers quote again. Knowledge is deeply tied to personal lived reality. Participation brings us closer to the true state of things. Painting, I think, is a means by which to participate in the reality that we find ourselves in. It's a way of slowing yourself down so you don't just say, oh, I see it, there it is, I captured it or something like that, but to really spend time investing with something so you can understand what is really there and what's the nature of the relationships of those things. And so for me, painting is a way of slowing down. It's a way of understanding what's there. It's a way of listening. It's a way of hearing the world and the way that God has created it, and the way that men and women and families interact in it. So this is this idea of through in and throughout, moving through something and deeper into it rather than just moving past it. moving throughout something, getting to know spaces more thoroughly rather than just kind of casually passing by them. My family and I have started a habit of going to, on any good weather Sunday, if we can, we go up to the Salamone State Forest, and the, can't remember the name of it, it's like a weird name, but the nature preserve nearby, neither of us can remember that name, it starts with a K, Kiwanakiki, something like that. And we go out in the landscape, and we just walk there, and we just, it calms the baby down, sometimes falls asleep, and the kids usually go, we don't want to go, and then when they get there, they're all fine. So it's one of the most beautiful things, but that relates to these paintings up here that are more nature-based. Some of them are from the Salamone State Forest, and some of them are from that nature preserve that I can't pronounce. And then the rest of the time is the time that I spend in houses, and the time that you spend in houses hopefully will help you relate to the paintings that are over on this other side. I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go. I love scripture, and I imagine many of you do too, so I'm going to read some verses that I think has a lot to do with this idea of knowing and understanding, maybe moving through in or throughout. And so I'll read this to you. Some of my favorite passages here are in Luke 8. And when Jesus' disciples asked him what this parable meant, he said, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of God." And I get to that point and I ask, why? Why were they given it? And part of my understanding is that they were with Jesus. Like, they spent time with him. They walked with him. They walked slowly enough to hear the crunch of the sound of the earth under his feet and see how he treated people. But he said, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of God, but for others, these things are spoken in parables, so that seeing they may not see and hearing they may not understand." And that's one of the most frightening verses for me, one of the most scary verses, one of the ones that is frustrating for me to know, why doesn't Jesus just say parables to people in ways that they can understand? And the picture, I'll just references that I draw from my art appreciation class is this, that the artist sees that they that they see the world differently than the people around them, the beholders of the work. And what the artist does is they have to begin building a bridge between them and someone else with the way that they see the world, and their art is basically looks like them. There's a circle like that. But the gap here is the beholder's responsibility to step into this space, to spend time with the work of art, listening to it. Art, especially paintings, the kind that I make at least, don't speak quickly. They don't speak readily. You don't stand in front of it and go, "Oh, I get it," and then move on or something like that. It's this slow type of plowing that would happen with an ox, not the kind that would happen with a combine, to use a Wendell Berry picture. So why is it that they see but may not seeing they may not see, and hearing they may not understand? I think often it happens because they go through too quickly, and Jesus goes at a walking pace, and if he's walking, then we need to walk. If he's going the speed limit, we go the speed limit. If he's going fast, sure, try to keep up, but I don't think that he goes faster than we can keep up with. He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So Luke 8, this is just a few verses down from this, goes through this idea of how are things revealed. And it says, "No one after lighting a lamp covers it with a jar or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a stand, so that those who enter may see the light. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known or come to light. Take care then how you hear, for the one who has, more will be given, from the one who has not. Even what he thinks he has will be taken away." So take care then how you hear. Like, how do we hear? Do we hear attentively? Do we hear with what David Ward in chapel was saying today, with wonder? Do we hear with wonder? Do we hear attentively? Or do we just casually move on? And so these paintings have this kind of slow speech that is something that calls for you to either not understand it because you go through too quickly, or to understand it because you go at its pace and listen in that way. But it takes this kind of hearing that is requires attentiveness and a careful listening. And it won't speak to you in words, it'll speak visually. And that's sometimes something that we get a bit numb to because we either surround ourselves with too many visual things or we just go numb to those and then we turn away from them. So this is one of the images from the Salamone State Forest. It was a creek that we came across, and I found it to be beautiful. It's this. Now it's kind of weird. It's so big on the screen here, but it's the smallest one. Does it have no, it doesn't have that. No. But yes, you can see some waterfalls there. Romans 1:20 is one of these other verses that gets down to this idea of understanding things that we don't see. I'm going to read to you this verse. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen. And I wonder if when we look at the world, and this was right from chapel today, right, for students and other people who were there, I wonder if when we look at the world that we sit in awe and wonder at what we see. Painting for me is a way where it slows me down to the point where I can become more attuned to the design of the world, and it helps me understand the design of God better. Like, what makes a painting beautiful? I'm going to read to you from the English Standard Version Bible Study Version. This is not scripture, but this is in, like page 2514, way in the back, and they're like things that help you understand the other parts. So study Bibles are great. The ESV one's probably the best that I'm aware of. But I'm going to read to you what it says about God in terms of us understanding who he is. It's trying to explain to us the Trinity of God. And to me, as someone who teaches design and someone who paints, I see these truths of design becoming apparent in their explanation of God. And so what makes for a good painting is often the same things that are embedded in terms of who God is. Why is a painting beautiful? I think it's beautiful in the ways that it reflects God. Not in a prettiness, not in a decorative sense, but in a deep, rich truth that happens in its understanding of reality, in the way that it helps us step into this space where we can understand things outside of where we used to understand them. So I'm going to read to you this passage. This bit from the study Bible. Within God there is both unity and diversity, unity without uniformity, and diversity without division. The early church saw this Trinitarian balance clearly. For example, the Athanasian Creed, AD 500, says, "We worship one God in the Trinity, and the Trinity in unity. We distinguish among the persons, but we do not divide the substance. The entire three persons are co-eternal and co-equal with one another, so that we worship complete unity in Trinity and Trinity in unity." This unity and diversity is at the heart of the great mystery of the Trinity. Unity without uniformity is baffling to finite minds, but the world shows different types of reflections of this principle of oneness and distinction at every turn. What is the source of the transcendent beauty in a symphony? The human body and marriage, ecosystems, the church, the human race, a delicious meal, and perfectly executed fast break in basketball. Is it not in large part due to the distinct parts coming together to form a unified whole, leading to a unified result? Unity and distinction, the principles at heart of the Trinity, can be seen in much of what makes life so rich and beautiful. Woven into the fabric of the world are multiple reflections of the one who made it with unity and distinction as the parallel qualities of its existence. So that's what I'm interested in when I make these paintings, whether they're of nature like this, or whether they are of these houses that I make in other cases. I'm going to show you some of the houses that I used to make. I used to make images that I kind of knew I could make because I could only paint during the summers. One of the reasons that I was given the sabbatical was so that I could go out and make this studio so I could have time to paint during the rest of the year, like during the school year. I used to clear out the painting room when all the students would go home for the summer and then just paint there, but now I can paint in my backyard. But I would make paintings like this on the left, ones that I could just kind of straight up go, all right, I only have summer to paint. I can basically follow through this, get some expression to it, but not paint in ways where I could discover new things in terms of what they could look. That was pre-studio work. Before I was able to finish the studio, when I was painting in the cold and my ice buckets would, my buckets of water would ice over, I was making these big drawings like this, but I had to do, I wanted to paint, which takes a little bit longer. If you're painting in severe cold, you'll freeze, you know. So paintings are a much slower way of making things than painting. Much slower than drawing. And so eventually, I had a dream where I kind of dreamt upon like houses on top of houses. Oh, what would that look like? 4 years later, I painted some. And so these are what one of my profs in grad school called, he said, they looked to me to be transfigurations, and I was titling them other things like urban housing crisis or I don't know, something like that. But he's going, no, you're like making too much of this. And so I want to read to you the passage in Luke about transfigurations. After I draw this little bit for you, there are things that are quick. The abstract things, not abstract art, but abstract things like words can be used. I've like thrown out thousands of them already, just while I've been sitting here. Things that are much slower are concrete. Things like architecture. It takes a lot longer to make than a painting might. So somewhere in the middle here we have, I tell my design students this, thumbnail sketches and drawings, and then we have paintings, which take a little bit longer. They're closer to being concrete. When I say abstracted concrete, I mean these are things that, like, if I say the word frog, and you don't know what a frog, like, if you don't know that the word frog references a ribbit thing that hops around, that's a very abstract way to reference a frog, but a concrete way to reference a frog maybe would be a sculpture of a frog or something like that. Sculptures fit in like here. But paintings have this kind of space in between abstraction and concreteness where they are referencing something in representational painting where you can look at it and go, oh, well, that looks like a frog. I wouldn't know the language otherwise if you're using English to talk about a frog, but I can see it. It is represented in a way I can understand it. So when I paint these transfigurations, I'm dealing with these kind of, this space in between abstraction and concrete things, this that requires a certain kind of pace. So I'm going to read to you this passage in Luke 9. It says, as Jesus was praying, his appearance of his face was altered, and his clothing became dazzling white. That is an amazing concept for me, and I didn't realize I was dealing with that until my prof said that he goes, these look like transfigurations to me. He wasn't a Christian, he's not into that kind of stuff at all, but to him it looked like one of these kinds of alterations like that, and then I went, oh my goodness, maybe I am dealing with that kind of thing in these paintings, and I was able to kind of run with it. So these other paintings that you'll see here are referencing that. I want to read to you just a short thing from one of my favorite books, The Great Divorce. Prof. Soderstrom told me about this a couple of years ago, and I was able to read it for the first time over sabbatical, and I love it. I can't tell you all the background on this, but basically, on the doorstep of heaven, not willing to step in, is a painter. But what's said to him is from an angel. Class starts in here at 6:15. Don't worry, we'll be done. So kind of a spirit has come to say, do you want to enter heaven? This is all not literal stuff, but figurative stuff. And the spirit's explaining to the artist about his art on earth in the place that it occupied. And I hope that mine does bits of this. And if you feel it doing anything in your own soul, maybe this is what it's doing. So the spirit says to the artist, when you painted on earth, at least in your earlier days, it was because you caught glimpses of heaven in the earthly landscape. The success of your paintings was that it enabled others to see the glimpses too. But here you are having the thing itself. It is from here that the messages came. And so this guy's standing at the doorstep of heaven, and he's going, oh, can I paint this stuff? And he's going, no, 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 you need to learn to see first. You need to learn to look. You need to slow down and not try to just jump to this thing that you fell in love with. And this guy's problem is that he's fallen in love more with painting than he has with God. But what he's saying here that I'm going, oh, I want my paintings to be about this. I want them to be at this place where it allows other people to step in this place where they can see heaven more readily. I'll tell you a quick story. Hopefully, we don't mind this. My son, okay, some of you were in chapel when Lauren Oak was talking about spiritual warfare. And the spiritual warfare was basically like scary things in closets and stuff like that. We won't to go into all of it. But my son, it was a Saturday night, you remember this? And Sunday morning, 3 a.m. It would have been Saturday night, but it was earlier than that. So Sunday morning, 3 a.m. comes into my wife's and my room, and he says, like, freaking out, Daddy, I hear noises in my room. And I was freaking out too, and I was going, okay, and like, what's going on? And we went and we prayed, right, Liam? Remember that? And you were freaking out, and then what did you say? What did you want me to do with the window before? Yeah. What did you want me to do with the window before I left?
Open it a little.
Yeah, you wanted to. Why did you want to see out? You wanted to see out there, right?
Yeah.
Because there was something. You were worried something scary would come after you. And I just want to tell you guys a story for the glory of God. That we prayed, Jesus, come down, protect us with your angels, rid all evil from this house. And what'd you see out there, Liam?
I saw some angels.
Yeah, he saw two angels outside in the trees. One was up high. Was the little one or the big one was up high? The little one was up high and the big one was down low, right? And Jesus just like revealed himself to us. And I think that there's this intersection between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. This thing that we think of as being abstract, and this thing that we understand daily to be concrete. And the difference isn't as big as we think it is. And sometimes God comes down to our space in ways that we can see. So in my paintings, I wrote this part out because I want to make sure I said it right. I want us to question what we know. I want us to question what we know and to know what we think of as being abstract with the kind of bedrock understanding of what we know physically through participation. So like the physical world around us, we participate with it, and we understand it better when we slow down and we make things with our hands, or we make bread, or we play with our kids, or we hold their feet, or we do these things, these times spent with people to know through participation. And what I want us to be able to do is to be able to spend time knowing God in that same way, where knowing God is an experience with Him, where it's time with Him, where it's a relationship with Him. And one of the things I've gotten from this book, The Great Divorce, is this thought of some people fall in love more with the idea of knowing God than God Himself, and or preaching about God, or painting pictures about God, or something like that. And all of it's really quite awful. So I'll read to you these things that speak to me from Amos 5. You're going like, man, this guy's pulling everything out from like all corners of Scripture. But sometimes I just open the Bible, and wherever it opens to, I read it. Usually goes to Isaiah, so I read the same verses in Isaiah over and over again. God, maybe you're thinking of me from Isaiah, but it doesn't always work that way. Don't worry about it. I like try to be somewhat methodical sometimes. So here we go. This one actually scares me some. So I think we'll pretty much wrap up with this since class starts here pretty shortly. Woe to you who desire the day of the Lord. Why would you have the day of the Lord? It is darkness and not light. As if a man fled from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand against the wall and a serpent bit him. Is not the day of the Lord darkness and not light, and gloom with no brightness in it? I despise your feasts, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the peace offerings of your fattened animals, I will not look at them. Take away from me the noise of your songs. To the melody of your harps I will not listen. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. These things that we don't see, that are absolutely as real as the things that we do see. Can we know them? When I read this verse, I thought, solemn assemblies, man, is that art shows? Like that shook me. God isn't pleased from just my paintings. Take away from me the noise of your songs. Is my art just noise? You know, I want it to be a vessel with people can know God better, or get an inkling, or an understanding, or a hope, or a direction where they can step into that space. And that's what these are about. The last thing, maybe, that I'll leave you with is, I'm not going to read all these to you, but you can see the theme. This is something that I thought used to mean, yeah, what he said, and then that was why this verse was tacked on at the end of all these other verses. There's a theme in the Gospels that you'll see Jesus saying, hey, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. You've been given this ability to listen and observe. You've been given this gift of time, and you are responsible to use it. You are responsible to understand God's invisible qualities through the things that are seen. And that was a gift that I feel like I was given, and I feel like I still am responsible to hold on to that. The last things, I know I said that the last one, there's a couple more that I want to show you. I was able to spend some time at White's Juvenile Detention Center and work with some kids there, and to give them opportunities to learn about, this is part of sabbatical, to learn about art, to become more creative, to draw, to spend time slowing down, learning things. Some of them were girls, and we did these classes where they draw things from their experience. One of the girls made this drawing of an experience that she had. This is her mother in the image, kind of weeping over a child that she lost. This one is taken by Emily Carr. Is she here? Did she make it? Oh, hey, you made it!
Hi.
Yes, and she let me spend time with this group of guys, and we got to paint for like about a week or so. We just go out into the field, trudge through it, get our feet wet and stuff, and we go paint down by a creek. And some of the guys did like way better than I ever thought they would, and some just painted like flags and stuff. But it was cool. We just slowed down and spent time outside, and got to see the way that God made things. This is a painting that I made when I was plein air, starting with them, and then finished it up after I stopped one afternoon. So my studio, I'd love to show you pictures of that, but we have 2 minutes till class starts. So I got help from people at my church doing this stuff. Oh, I was really tired that day. My back was killing me. God healed my back too. That was cool. A good friend from church helped me. I said, I need to get this thing vaulted, and this guy said, let's go ahead. Like, let's do it. I was like, you're willing to do that? He said, yeah. So I didn't want a flat ceiling. Like, you just can't be creative with a flat ceiling that close above your head, right? So he understood this and helped me vault the ceiling, dug a trench, you know, get 220 power out there so I don't die of cold and stuff like that. Took the studs and made them into stuff, like, you know, put Homa soda up, and praise God for providing for all this. And I have a place to paint. So real quick pictures. We took a ash tree, we cut it, milled it down, made it into boards, turned it into a wood floor that looks like this from our own ash tree in our backyard. Wow. Praise God. That took a little bit of time. Don't just get lumber liquidators. It's way easier. Prof. Nelson pictures, much better. Much better. Oh my goodness. So that's a desk that I was able to design so I can paint there. These are the bigger versions of the paintings that you see out there. I'm working on them. I'm kind of stuck, not sure what I can do with them right now. And this is a trap door I made so I can bring paintings up and down into the studio. So that's, if you ever want to know how to design something like that, I'll tell you how to do it. And that's pretty close to the end. There's influences on my work, but it's time to go. Thank you so much.